The truth has arrived.
It's massively powerful. It's massively corrupt, the media and big tech. Section 230 should be taken out because that's their protection that was given artificially to them. But it's a massive form of corruption and silence and suppression. Like, for instance, this conversation that we're having right now, they will only take if there's something that was slightly off, like you or I mispronounced a word, or you or I, that will be the story. It is, and yet they won't talk about Hunter Biden. Never talk about Hunter Biden. Stole millions and millions of dollars, and if you do talk about him, they take you off their platforms. No, it's massively corrupt. I think what happened is in 2016, where I won, I caught him by surprise.
My name is Jonathan Gilliam, and this is The Experts. And welcome back, everybody. It's Monday, and I hope you had a great weekend. And we ended the week last week. I took a Thanksgiving off, and then I replayed the interview that I did earlier this year, in January, actually. It's hard to believe that I'm saying earlier this year, not earlier this week, but earlier this year with Drago, who, if you don't remember who Drago is, go back and listen to Friday's show. That'd be episode 132. This is going to be episode 133. You can also listen to the second episode of The Experts. Either one, you're going to get the same interview because I replayed it on Friday so that we could cover what's actually occurred from January until now. And in January, Drago, who was a Polish citizen who was held in a gulag, which is like a re-education prison in a socialist country, he was held there for being basically a part of somebody who just speaks his mind in a freedom underground, I guess you could call it, and stayed there. It was imprisoned in that gulag for a period of time, got out, came to the United States, became an American citizen. After it wasn't quick, this took years and years. And then the day he became an American citizen, he enlisted in the Navy, and then ended up becoming a Navy SEAL for 20 years. And is now a computer programmer and the creator of ConnectZing, which is a free speech platform like Facebook. It's really a Facebook killer, and which I'm involved with that, and so is his incredible wife Rachel, who's an Air Force Academy grad. How's that for a combo? And so I wanted to bring him back on here today and continue this conversation that we had in January about all the things that have happened since then. And you can hear that's Drago in the background. So let me bring him on. Let me bring him on. He is COVID free. But Drago, what do you? What's the biggest thing since January when we just? And also, everybody's going to notice that our sound has improved greatly because we both got, as I was talking about last week, the Rodecaster Pro, and we were hooked up to that now. So the sound quality just over a phone is better. But Drago, what is the biggest thing? From when we were saying if socialists get in power, and if the country and the politicians do these things, this is what's going to happen. What is the biggest thing that you've seen since January to now that actually has occurred? Because as I was listening to the show that aired on Friday, which it was this interview from January, I was shocked at how much we were saying if they do this, if this happens, and it's happened.
I think the biggest thing is a stolen election.
Yeah.
I mean, and the events that led to stolen elections. The riots, violence, intimidation. Those are the hallmarks of socialism. I experienced that decades ago in communist socialist Poland.
Yeah.
And it seems like now this thing is coming here to the United States. And it took time. I mean, it didn't happen overnight. That subversion of America started after Second World War, and especially in the 60s. And those are the results of the Marxist indoctrination and subversion of America into socialist state. Although please remember that I don't believe that the goal is socialism and communism at this point. The socialism and communism failed. And people know this is not the system of the future. I think that the socialism and communism are the vehicles,
Mm-hmm.
vehicles to control the resources around the globe by small socialist elites. I think they use that socialism. The subversion process, I think, very well described by Yuri Bezmenov, a former KGB officer who escaped to the West. He described how the system works, how the process works, and once placed that subversion starts, you can't stop it, especially after the first phase that takes around 20 years completes. It's pretty much a runaway train. So it's not the Putin behind right now, but he's definitely enjoying it. But the process right now is as a runaway train where America was subverted into socialism and communism.
So when Poland was subverted and they went into a socialist government, what was the? So you talk about this elite. We use that term loosely when we say that, but these controlling elites. Who were they then, and compared to now? Let's start there. Who were they then, and who are they now, and how are those people related, or are they not related at all? I'm not talking about physically related, but like ideologically.
I don't think they are related because stakes are much higher. We are not talking about the resources of one country or maybe 2-3 countries in Soviet bloc. We're talking about the worldwide resources. If they can gain control of that, I think we're talking about the modern day slavery all over again. And so, yeah, the goal is different. It's just the socialism and communism now is just a vehicle
Mm-hmm.
for globalists to gain control of the resources.
And so the people that are the people that were then that controlled that, how did they subvert and how did they manufacture this belief in the people in Poland as opposed to here? Was that the same tactics?
Very similar tactics. Also, the technology was different. Today, we have a Facebook and other Marxist outlets pushing that propaganda. At that time, there were newspapers, magazines, and written word. But please remember that everything was strictly controlled then, just like it is strictly controlled now. We have a Twitter, Facebook, and other, I say, anti-American organizations pushing that narrative. So the methods were the same, the ideas were different, and methods were very similar on the propaganda. In the propaganda aspect of it was very similar, but the methods were, well, because it was different time. There was after Second World War, so the foreign military, the Soviet military came in. They subdued the countries in Eastern Bloc, installed their own people, and managed very tightly the propaganda. Just like today, the Facebook is managed, Twitter and other fake news media. So I think we are very bad predicament right now. I don't know how to go about it. I mean, this is something that should never happen, and I would never imagine that could happen to America until 10 years ago, and I started having doubts that I think the direction we are going is right.
Now, when you see what mainstream media, really it's a mainstream media, social media, the people who own that, the politicians, when you see stuff that they say, how close is that? And the reason I keep asking this compared to Poland is because, you know, when I study, and I put out a meme earlier today or tonight saying that for all these people that think improved roads or schools or Social Security is socialism, it's not. Venezuela, Cuba, World War II, Germany, and Poland, that's socialism, right? So when we look at the process in which this is happening here and the speed at which it's happening, is the speed the same?
Speed, I think it's even faster now because because of the technology. But I can say this: if people only took the time to ask refugees from the former socialist countries in Eastern Europe, how did socialism work out for them, the prison camps, the executions. And if people stood in unity against evil, we wouldn't have any Democrats left in the office today.
Right.
It is a very dangerous system. And again, we are being subverted. That's what I see. I lived through it. I've seen it. And I'm seeing it again.
So, okay, now let's start looking at, we'll get back to Poland here in a minute and talk about that in comparison to this. Since January, a lot of people are completely blind as to what has occurred and then the potential for what will possibly occur if this president is unable and his team are unable to actually right what has been done wrong, which I don't think that's going to happen because they're not doing revotes. They're doing recounts, and a recount's not going to do anything. So when we look at what has occurred over the past year and how we were talking about if and now we're talking about it happened, what is the next potential thing that can happen from where we are now and the speed at which that could change?
I think the next, not potential, but the next thing that will happen, I believe it will happen, is socialist elections, where socialist elections are where socialists and communists always win. And I think it just started. So the next thing will be solidified that through legislations, through different steps, to make sure that it will never happen again, because I think they learned the lesson, the left and Marxists and communists learned the lesson when President Trump won elections, and they will never allow that to happen again.
Now I'm looking at, I told you about this when we talked earlier, about how already the EU, the European Union, and the Biden team are already talking about as though this is going to be better. They're saying that the European Union, and this comes from Reuters, right? Reuters and AP we used to think of those things as like real news, but it's all fake now. And this comes from Reuters, and it says relations between the United States and Europe have been strained under President Donald Trump. The EU and most of the bloc states have congratulated President-elect Joe Biden. I mean, this is written like it's a Joe Biden press release. It says, quote, as open democratic societies and market economies, the EU and the U.S. agree on the strategic challenge presented by China, growing international assertiveness, even if we do not always agree on the best way to address this. And so they have this draft plan where they're going to work together to get along with China, basically. Right. So when we look at this and we look at how quickly they are trying to undo what the president did, I think it's clear that these the difference between one of the biggest differences between Poland and Venezuela or Cuba or even Russia is that now we're talking about global socialism. We're not just talking about the United States. We're talking about solidifying all the other areas like the EU, like in Spain, like in Australia, where socialism has taken stronghold. Now, as the United States flips, the potential there is to solidify with our power. Basically, you know how like in Rocky, his brother-in-law was always palling around with him so he could appear stronger and be protected. That's what it's kind of like, that these other unions will be solidified, and their socialism will be solidified through our strength.
Definitely. On the international area, we are the last man standing. We are the last one standing. And we are the only country on the way to solidify, like you say, that power and the overreach of the world resources. So and we need to remember the European Union were never our friends. I mean, we look back. They never pay for their share for the NATO part. They colluded with Russia on the gas pipe. they will sell us out in the heartbeat, and they don't really care about their own citizens. If you can read a foreign press in foreign language, you could read that right now they are making huge. They're trying to exert pressure on Poland and Hungary to change their laws to accommodate, to be more adaptable with those of European Union.
Mm-hmm.
So the way you should read it is, so you change the law so we can manipulate it any way we want, and you won't be able to say anything about it. For them, it is very important that they can squash, they can change the things that are not convenient for the socialist elites around the world, for the globalists. You know, this is such a almost ridiculous thing. I was like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when I heard the globalist New World Order, I was just laughing at it. I think that's a conspiracy. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't think it's any longer a conspiracy. That's the fact. That's what is happening right now. They try, and they have to undermine our country. They have to destroy it the way we are, so they can control the rest of the world, or
convert it to the way that they are, which is,
yes,
I think,
convert it the way they yes,
yeah.
So basically, what they will do, and think about it. They will use our resources to prop their own agendas around the world. They can't do it right now. They don't have enough of it. Mm-hmm. They need America, and this is why they try to subvert it. They use what the former Soviet Union started, and they say, wow, this works great for us too. Let's continue. And they went with it. The results are here. Chaos on the streets, possible political murders. We have first political prisoners. People can't believe that, but I believe General Flynn, Roger Stone, Carter Page, Steve Bannon, these people are the prime example how socialist state creates political prisoners. Ever ask yourself why former socialist countries in Eastern Europe always claim that they hold no political prisoners? Yes, because all of them were sent to prisons and gulags on fabricated criminal charges. Most of political prisoners in socialist states are sentenced for anything but political activities. This is why and how socialist countries could always deny and always have denied of having political prisoners.
Well, I would even go as far to say that we have been political prisoners, not to the extent of General Flynn or you, but we're censored for our speech. I mean, I've just got kicked off of Instagram for no reason whatsoever. I was blocked on Facebook for a period of time. My YouTube was taken down for 3 months because I said something about David Hogg. We are censored to a point where they're trying to get us used to that, where we just won't say anything because we don't want to get in trouble.
Yes. I mean, look, people, just take a step back. People are afraid to display signs for their president. People who are voting for a president, President Trump, they were physically attacked, verbally attacked. The people were losing jobs over it. This is how bad it became. You know, I experienced socialism and communism. I went to prison there, to political prison there, but I don't recall being that perverted as the Democratic Party created here in America.
Yeah, here it's been very sneaky the way that it's been trickery in the way of they create something that you want, and then once they feed it to you, then they control you through that. Now, I don't know if they did that there. I guess maybe the phones or, just your freedom in general in Poland. But
they did.
But here,
there was different mechanism and different. Up there at that time, they were creating organizations. They knew that most of the citizens opposed socialism and communism. They can't stand it. They hate it.
Yeah.
So they were creating organizations against communism themselves. And they were manned by secret service agents, by secret police there. And people believe that they are joining a legitimate movement against communism and socialism, while they were working for the communists and socialists themselves. And I think the Facebook and Twitter here are a good example of the control and manipulation. And like I say, that's, I mean, for me, this is obvious. I don't know how obvious it is to our citizens who never experienced socialism yet.
Well, that's the thing. Most people, and this is why this conversation is so important. They don't know exactly what socialism is. Like, as we can see when people say, you can thank socialism for roads and for your school system and for your social security, and none of that is socialism.
No, absolutely not. We had that for decades, for centuries, and nobody called it socialism.
Right.
But I tell you, just I think 2 months ago, I read about in Poland, they just discovered another mass graves of political opponents of socialism. I think 2 months ago, they found another 2 victims in secret grave. That's socialism. And this is how socialism works. Socialism needs political prisoners. Socialism needs divisions. In Soviet Union, there were kulaks. The richer peasants. In Hitler's socialism, in National Socialism, there were Jews. So here, I think we have the educated people and richer people who actually made their money that being attacked now.
So why do you say that they need prisoners? Why do they need prisoners? It's almost, remember the movie The Matrix, how the machines needed humans so that they could use their body heat basically as batteries. And I almost feel like when it comes to Satan or it comes to socialism, they need these prisoners, but I can't figure out why. Why do they need us?
Well, they would like to get rid of these prisoners, and Soviet Union did on the mass scale, just were making disappear as much as they could, but the scale was so massive they couldn't disappear everybody. But look at what National Socialism did in Germany. So they need them. They need to control societies. They need to remove people who think independently or who think differently than what socialists and communists think. And they perceive it as a threat. And for them, it is a threat. I mean, it is a real threat because people do not buy into slavery. People have free will, and people will not are not easily forced into into socialism and communism. So people will resist, and they're afraid of it. They don't want it. They want to remove these people. So usually they will not tell you we're gonna put you in prison because we don't like what you think. They will find something. Say, well, I think you just committed some IRS some tax crime, so we're gonna put you in prison. And people will know. If people ask, we just say, and I hear it all the time. So if he is, let's say, from the Democrats or from my friends who are on the Democratic side, they say, well, if they did so bad, why they are not in prison? Why if you say that these people, let's say, committed treason, why they are not in prison? Well, if you like every Democrat, every treasonous Democrat in prison, we wouldn't have any Democrats left. Mm-hmm. So they need this to divide society. They need to remove people who are opposing them, because the people who are supporting them is very few and in between. So. Also, it's easier if you not only imprison them, but if you demoralize society. If you remove patriotism, if you remove God, then your beliefs are just, your moral values are relative moral values. Today they may be, I don't like, let's say, certain people. Tomorrow they will convince you that you do not like Jews, like in Hitler Germany. So the mechanism is the same. And it gives the socialists, whether this is the Hitler socialism or Pelosi socialism or Bernie socialism, gives them the control over the people.
I also think that control, and you tell me from your perspective that I don't think I think that the control is also a narcissistic, psychopathic, megalomaniac thing. They can't. What good would it do these egos if they didn't have people to lord over? That's like going and watching a funny movie by yourself. You know, they don't enjoy power without, or power is really not power if you don't have it over someone.
I think you're right. Some of them are like that, but there's many who are indoctrinated and who really believe that taking away from people or jailing people for their beliefs is just to preserve the good socialist state, and they really believe in it. So now we have two different type of people. One, those who don't believe in it, and I've seen them both in communist country. One, they don't believe in the communism, but it's very convenient for them. It's great life for them, so they continue with it. And there are people indoctrinated who do believe in that socialism and communism, no matter how bad it is, no matter how many people they murder. If you look at some of these the processes, again, if people can read in different languages, they could read some of the European press. In Poland, they are still arresting judges who actively participated from what today is crime in Poland, judicial murders. This is how this qualified now. Those judges who were sending people to prisons, who were sentencing them people to death for believing, for not supporting socialism.
For not supporting socialism.
For not supporting socialism.
Wait, I'm confused. Those judges are still being charged.
Prosecuted. Yes.
So that means that socialism is still in Poland?
No, those are judges who were during the socialism and communism at times in Poland were instilling communism, prosecuting people. They found themselves on the other side. Now they are being prosecuted themselves for murders.
So, but you said that you have seen signs in Poland that the young people are embracing socialism again. Is that, am I correct on that?
Please remember that Soros and his organizations are very active in Poland. They are sending people to the United States, to some universities where they are being indoctrinated and then sending back to Poland. There's quite few organizations run and financed by Soros and his people. So I see right now, again, the same thing that is happening in the United States, where your faith is being denigrated, where patriotism is bad because you are just a nationalist, and anything about your moral values is bad unless you embrace perversion.
Wow. Now, when it's hard, I mean, it's not hard for me to wrap my head around. I mean, I've been telling everybody about this. I was looking at some of my old videos from Facebook and some of the shows that I hosted on Sirius and for Sean Hannity. I mean, look, I had you on Sean Hannity years ago. That first conversation that we had when I was doing my show on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and I came to your house and interviewed you. These are things that we talked about way back then, so it's not a surprise to us, but it is, for some reason, and maybe it hit you, when you were in Poland and stuff, but when you're seeing this happen, it's like a car crash in slow motion. There's nothing you can do about it. The weight of the car is already pushing forward and crashing, and it's just a scary thing to watch it unfold.
It is really scary.
And a helpless thing.
Yes, and it is just the beginning. If this doesn't stop, we will find ourselves where Poland and other communist countries were 50 years ago. And basically, not technologically, but talking about the freedom, talking about the freedom of expression and religion. I mean, look at even now, the attacks on our faith, on our moral values, on our patriotism. And that should disturb everybody.
When you were in Poland, so help people understand this, because I think this is the potential where we're going from this point forward. And we'll talk a little bit more in a minute about the election. But when we're looking forward, right, we were sitting here in January having this discussion saying if we go forward, or if this happens, or if they continue down this road, what did you experience in Poland? I know you talked about poverty before. You talked about how you'd have to stuff your coats with newspapers, and how your mom would have to go sit at 3 a.m. to try to get bread and beans or whatever it was, and she would come home often with no food. But what is, when you look back at what socialism caused, and you look at what we could be going to now, what do you think that we would first start seeing in the next year or 2 years? I mean, we're going at such a rapid speed. Like I said, just since January,
Right.
it's been 11 months, and it's unbelievable where we are now as compared to them. Let's say in another 11 months, or double that, 22 months, what do you think is the most oppressive things that they could do, and how fast they could get this stuff?
What I expect is more prosecutions, more attacks on people who were causing them grief and problems in our country. So I would expect, and I think we will see, attacks also on these people's families. So there will be more prosecutions, I think. Of course, they will not be prosecuted for their beliefs. They will be prosecuted for whatever they can find it, for some tax evasions, for whatever it is. Maybe it's just speaking politically incorrectly. But definitely this is going to happen. They have to squash this, and they have to go and ensure that these people will not come out again and threaten their socialist ideology. So that's what I think is going to come up next. That these people will be, well, if not prosecuted, at least they will be denigrated on social medias, in fake news medias constantly. So they become basically socialists and communists will try to push them into irrelevance.
Yeah, and also one thing that I want you to explain to the people this, because you and I have talked about this before, how law enforcement will end up being the enforcers, and how people start turning each other in. And that
this is,
go ahead.
Yes, I mean, in Poland maybe not so much because people hated communists, but if you look at another socialist state, is the Germany at the time. I think there was like 2 people in 3. They were actually writing. Cooperating with secret police.
Yeah, and I think that's what you're seeing now, like with the COVID stuff.
Yeah, absolutely, and detention camps. That's something that I never think may happen again. I would ever see it again, but it seems like they can find excuse why they need to detain or remove some people from society, whether because it's too old, too sick, or potentially dangerous. But those are the hallmarks of socialism, that you have no rights. They can remove you for any reason. You can vote whatever you vote. The judge will come in and say, you voted wrong. And
I mean, that's what happened.
That was happening in California. People voted, but they were told they were wrong, and that didn't matter.
That's what happened in Pennsylvania. That's what happened in Georgia. I mean, anybody that doesn't see this chain of events that happened with the mail-in ballots and these Dominion machines.
Oh, I'm talking about something else.
Oh, you're talking about
Yeah, I'm talking about California. I think about this, the marriage of man with man. I mean, where people voted it down, the same-sex marriage.
Oh yeah.
They were told they were wrong, and that what they voted doesn't matter. So,
interesting.
Here we go.
Yeah. Well, that was, kind of the beginning. That's the other thing that we saw, which, whatever, if something goes before the Supreme Court, well, listen, first of all, the Supreme Court's not always right. Remember, the Supreme Court used to say that slavery is right. They said that, I forgot what it's called, not euthanization, but where the state can put somebody to death because of because they are not in their right mind or something like that. Not because they're criminal, but because they deem them unworthy or whatever. The Supreme Court has, I forgot what that's called, no, not euthogenics. It's something like that. But anyway, it has to do with killing people. That, like Kennedy's sister, for instance. They basically
euthanasia.
Yeah, but it's called something else. That Margaret was it Margaret Sanger, the one who started Planned Parenthood? I'm blanking on all these names right now. the lady who started Planned Parenthood, she was all about this. In fact, that's
Right.
one of the reasons why she thought abortion was great, because it was, euthanized these souls that are waste. You don't need them, and so just get rid of them.
Right.
Hitler believed in that,
Yes.
and wherever socialism is, that occurs. I was looking earlier tonight on the CDC website that somebody sent me that has to say, let's see what it says, operational considerations for humanitarian settings. And it goes into, and I can put this up on social media, it goes into how basically exactly what you just said, where they're talking about camps for elderly to keep them safe. Who does that?
Well, see, when Joseph Stalin sent people to gulags, he decided the same thing. He just wants some people to be safe, and it's just for the greater good of society. So in Soviet Union, they send them to gulags. Here, they will just tell them, "Hey, we keep you in prison because it's better for you." Yeah. that's basically. I mean, they really say they will tell you whatever they want to tell you, and they will do whatever they feel like they need to do. So if they tell you this is something is white, but it is actually black, and you disagree with it, they tell you just for your better good, we're gonna lock you up, that you will feel better.
So the other thing I think that people need to realize is that when we look at the Jews and how they marched right onto a train, I'm sure you saw in Poland a lot of people that hated what was going on, but they just wouldn't do anything.
That's true. The Jews didn't march to the trains. Please remember that they did resist. There were organizations that took arms. They were fighting to the end. But you're right. There were many people around them who did not help them. Or they were selling them out because they wanted to survive and say, look, that's not my business. They're just coming for them, not for me. So I'll just be sitting quietly on the sideline. And this is what happened then. This is why there was such a Holocaust, because people didn't stood up for them. And now I think some people did. I don't want to generalize it, but
yeah, but not enough to stop it. And that's the problem now.
Not enough to stop it. Yes, and if we do not stop it now, I mean. Today or tomorrow there might be elderly people in the camps, but the next may be you because you just disagree with socialists and communists. Again, I don't want to make impression that this is about socialism and communism. At this point, I believe that socialism and communism are only the vehicles for the global control of resources by socialist elites.
Okay, let's talk about the voting thing real quick. I know you gotta go here pretty soon, but let's talk about the voting stuff real quick and how similar this is to stuff that you've seen before. It's not anything, that is new, and how predictable this was. I mean, again, we were talking about in January, before COVID, before any of this stuff, about the reality of how elections can be skewed and the tricks that they play in these socialist countries. Was it a surprise to you? When did you start to feel like the fix was in? And what's your opinion on what happened?
It was fixed. Of course, it was fixed. But I didn't expect that the extent of corruption and extent of depravity. That really surprised me. I knew that Democrats were planning a coup. I mean, they were in a state of coup, trying the coup for the last 4 years. And it's kind of amazing that people don't see it. Yeah. But I did not expect. I mean, it didn't cross my mind that they can use machines, they can recalculate the vote, and this is nothing complicated. As a software engineer, I can create such machine within a couple hours, such mechanism that will calculate and take your votes and give percentage to it. So basically, will sway the whole voting system towards one candidate, and just the fact that we used such machines and we became almost like second Venezuela. Democrats create banana republic out of our country.
So tell her that's the one thing about these machines, right? You're looking at this from not just somebody who's lived in a socialist country, but somebody who's a computer programmer. And these are not,
Right.
look, this is not a complicated machine. It's not like they do anything but tally a vote.
Yes.
So what I can't understand, first of all, I mean, how they're always breaking. What is it about these machines?
I think the algorithm provided and executing on these machines broke because of the overwhelming votes for President Trump. Nobody expected that. I think they broke. They don't say they did, but I believe they broke, and this is why they had to stop counting. They had to just produce more votes because there was not enough. Whatever they already cheated was not enough, so they have to procure more.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Within 6 hours, over 700,000 votes suddenly showed up in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
I mean, one has to be an imbecile or Democrat to believe that.
So, you know, it's fun. This is what's interesting, what you're bringing up, because when we go back and look at, I don't know if you remember this. I'm trying to remember it in my brain. When this guy from Florida supposedly sent bombs, they were inert bombs, but sent all these explosive devices. And so he wouldn't call them bombs, they'd be called explosive devices, but he sent them to all these different people, CNN and MSNBC and George Soros' address himself and all these different people. Then you started seeing all these people jump on the bandwagon and say, no, I was sent one too. But what's interesting about that and compared with this is that I never bought for 2 seconds that guy was up and up a conservative, right? You know, that it was picture perfect of a guy who has a van with all the Trump stuff on it, a guy who has all the NRA stuff on it. The van's parked where everybody can see it in Florida. But the biggest tell for this was that everything arrived on the same day through the United States Post Office. When does that ever happen? Right? You're going to send something to 12 people and it's over Christmas and it's going to get to everybody on the exact day that it should be there. It doesn't happen that way.
I mean, it tells you how the Democratic Party is disregarding our citizens. They don't care what they think. They don't care what the reality is. I mean, 700,000 votes in a couple hours just to produce. Stop the machines, bring 700. Suddenly, they change 700,000 votes. Then, like you just say, you gave the example. And there's many, many more. It is preposterous, and I think we are losing our country. And again, my concern is that if this goes this way, the next elections will be like totally socialist elections. There will be no chance for anybody to challenge communists and Marxists in Democratic Party.
When they said they were going to have, if you could take yourself back a little bit, when they said they were going to have the mail-in ballots, when you first heard that, what did you think?
I thought this is their gig. That's what I was afraid of. That's what I was thinking is going. I knew that they have mechanism, and I knew they worked on it for a very long time. And this is then for me that this is what they were working on. And you can't deny that that COVID was hand to hand with it. So basically, that virus that is killing us, they use it for political reasons. They weaponize it. That was almost, I would say, biological warfare against U.S. citizens, against Americans, against all of us.
Mm-hmm. It's like they don't hide it.
They did. I'm not saying that they created a virus. I'm saying they used it.
Well, I don't know. I did a whole show. I did a whole show last week because when you look at from an investigative standpoint, and you look at the totality of the evidence or the totality of the circumstances, everything that has occurred in the past year can be attributed 100% to the Democrats. They say it's Trump, but really it's the Democrats. Every single thing, riots, the explosion of the death rate early on, all these different things. It all comes back to the Democrats. The only thing we can't truly, or no, I wouldn't say truly, we can't evidentiarily point to the Democrats exactly and say they did it, is the creation and the spread of the virus, the initial spread of it.
But I wouldn't put beyond that.
No, I wouldn't either. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that you're wrong for that. I'm saying
we can't prove it, but
right. but I think when we look at the reality of how this stuff is unfolded, it's very similar to the past 4 years of everything that they did to try to entrap the president.
Yes.
Was predictable before they did it. You could have sat down and said, no, now they did this, they're going to obviously do this. And then they do it, and they don't hide what they're doing, and it's blatant lies. So the question I have for you is this something that you've seen before?
Not to that extent. I've seen coming. Well, no, I haven't seen anything to that extent. But for them, this is, I think, life and death situation. If they lose this election, I think people will not allow them to swindle and cheat again like this. Basically, they were called out. They were caught red-handed. But like with any Democrat or communist, even if you catch them red-handed by hand, they will never admit even that this is their hand.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you hold their hand.
Well, they don't have to. They have too much power. When bad people get caught, but they have all the power, there's no consequence. And if there's no consequence, they just move on to the next lie. And besides, they have the echo chamber that says they're not lying. Remember Eddie Murphy, right, when he had that comedy skit, and he said that he got caught cheating on his wife, and she said, Eddie, why'd you do this? He goes, it wasn't me. I mean, that's what they do. They just say, it wasn't me.
Right.
And there's nothing that anybody can do to prove otherwise because, I mean, they're all in Congress and they won't do anything. Congress has no teeth.
Yep. I guess the teeth biting citizens.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the Republicans won't do anything as a group. Like there are some great Republicans out there, Louis Gohmert, there's a couple others, but there's not enough of them to stand up and stand against what's going on. And the same thing with the American people. All these people say they're patriots, but where are they?
Yep.
Anything else? Anything else?
I would say, I think Cicero must have heard over 2,000 years ago about today's moral bankrupt Socialist Democratic Party when he says, nation can survive its fools and even the ambitious, but cannot survive treason from within. Enemy at the gates is less formidable, for he knows he carries his banners openly against city. But the traitors moves among those within the gates freely. His sly whispers, and you can read it. You can Google that and read that. That was recorded by Marcus Tullius. It was Marcus Tullius Cicero from the speech given to the Roman Senate, and it was recorded by Sallust in 42 BC.
And what is his name again?
Marcus Tullius Cicero.
Okay. Oh, okay. And yeah, I know what you're talking about now. Sorry, I couldn't understand that.
Yeah.
Actually, I will tell you, your accent's gotten better since January.
Slow. I'm working on it very hard, but I guess I'm not talented in this field. I can speak different languages, but seems like the accent here, I'm working on 30 years, and just is not working for very well. No matter what I do, I'm trying. I'm not giving up.
Good. Well, we don't want you to give up.
By the way, my kids speak with no accent. They speak perfect English. I'm so proud of that.
That's funny. I know several people who have grown up like, especially people whose parents are from Puerto Rico. I have a lot of Puerto Rican friends, and their parents are, man, still can't understand. They've been here for 20 something years. Their kids have no accent. And I know the same thing with, I've met Korean people when I was in the FBI and met their families, and their families don't speak English, let alone an accent, but they speak perfectly English. The kids do. Okay. One more question. And I'll let you go. And then we'll pick back up on this some other time when it's earlier and we have more time. I don't think most people realize when I'm recording my shows, it's either late at night or early in the morning because I stayed up all night researching. But where were the Polish people when they actually started to see daylight above the socialism, where they actually started to get back? Did it fall? Did socialism fall in Poland as fast as socialism has grown here, or was it gradual?
The degradation was gradual because remember, people were going hungry people who complained were disappearing from the streets or being jailed. So the resistance grew, but what happened is more like a passive resistance. People never accepted slavery of socialism and communism. So, but in 1970s, late 1970s, you could see the cracks in the system that it becomes so overboard, just like today, Democratic Party telling us the truth, became so overboard that people just started losing fear. And that actually escalated the repressions towards the opposition from the socialist state. So people resisted even more. And by 1980s, they had to resort to martial law because otherwise they could not control the society there. And after the martial law, other states, socialist states, start grumbling and complaining and following Poland. So eventually it overwhelmed the Soviet Union. They could not supply the support and power that socialists in these satellite countries needed. It started slowly falling apart. And, just look at the Soviet Union. It fell apart. The socialist system disappeared. They walked away from socialism and communism. And now we are working. They got smarter. And they rebuild their country. They rebuild their power. They are threatening again. They are dangerous again. And we are working because they were able to rebuild their country because they walk away from socialism. Now we are being dragged into it by the international socialist elites.
So
because that's the way to destroy us.
I said I was only going to ask one more question, but that kind of leads me to two other questions. One, what is so? Like you said, they walked away from socialism, communism, and they've grown. Does that mean, in what way are they bad? Like, if I'm not saying anything good about Russia, but
they are bad for us because they are dangerous for us. We compete for resources on the global scale, and them being strong means they can take what they want to take from certain regions, and we shouldn't be allowing that. So they rebuild their strength and power. I mean, look, they challenge us in the Middle East, so that should never happen, but it does. So yeah, and now we are being walked into the socialism by the globalist elites because they don't want strong United States. They think that cabal can go and collude with China, with our enemies, so they can control where, what, who.
But the last question is, this is not a regional or a state socialist movement. This is
not any longer.
This is a global movement. So now the scary part of this is that what broke the back of Poland or Russia or these other socialist countries was the economic status. I mean, Cuba is really broken, but they just, the few that are, there's so few people there as compared to these other countries that the ruling elite can stay in power. But when Venezuela is crashing as we speak, but the problem is with what's happening here in the European Union, all this stuff, is that I don't know if they will go broke like they did in the other places. I don't know if they will kill too many people. I mean, it's such a vast power base now that I don't know.
Because they can legislate everything into it. They don't have to kill you now. They just tell you that you can't do it. If you do, they put you in prison.
Yeah.
But they will kill people. I mean, look, there are very suspicious deaths. We have the Philip Heine, the whistleblower, the DHA's whistleblower who exposed Democrats deleting records and database records and files of Muslim terrorists. Mm-hmm. Look at the Seth Rich, who exposed Clintons and the Democratic Party again. There are very suspicious deaths, and I'm sure there are many more we didn't hear about.
I think people who listen to this are going to have a whole bunch more questions. They're going to say, "Hey, why didn't you ask Drago this, or can you ask Drago that?" But let's just play it, week by week, month by month. I just saw on the news that Joe Biden broke his leg. I'm sorry, not broke his leg, broke his foot. They say he was playing with his dog. I don't know. Sounds
Would
like
you believe that?
sounds like the machine's already trying. So who knows exactly what occurred. But listen, thanks again for coming on here as always. And I know people are going to hear this. And the different thing between this conversation we had in January is that January was full of warnings. Today, it's kind of full of affirmations where we're saying, yes, this has occurred.
Yes.
So I guess the next show we're going to be asking more questions or we're going to have more warnings, I guess, because this show has kind of shown that we're in this gray area where we're going to, things could speed up and go down an even darker path. The problem is this period of time where we could have risen up and done things, it's quickly passing us by.
I would like to make one last comment, Jonathan, just so people understand. I'm speaking from for myself. I'm speaking from my experience, what I already seen in communist socialist countries, in their workings. I've been there. I've seen it. My vantage point is different than most of people born here. So that's why I feel I can speak about it. I can speak what I saw, what I experienced, and how it relates to what is going on in our country here now.
All right, brother. Thank you very much again for all the information and stuff that you're putting out to people, and we'll keep it going. And everybody should go to Connect Zing, join there. You should be starting to understand the reality of how important this alternative platform is to Facebook and Twitter and stuff, because we're not going to allow, as far as we can, censorship. I mean, we're not going to allow the censorship to happen. But who knows?
Yes.
Who knows? I mean, they cut electricity. Who knows what they're going to do next? Who knows?
They will attack us.
Yeah. All right. Well, anything you want to say, or you see something in particular, just, you can always call me and we'll put you back on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You got it.
Show, and
You
see
got
you
it.
next time.
You got it, brother. Thank you.
Bye.
Out of all the interviews I've done, my interviews with Drago, my Navy SEAL brother, are the most important. Before he became a Navy SEAL and American citizen, he was a Polish citizen under socialist Poland, held in a gulag for being a part of the Freedom Underground. He had warnings in episode 132. Now we talk about the future. Listen to this.
This is such a almost ridiculous thing. I was like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when I heard the globalist New World Order, I was just laughing at it. I think that's a conspiracy. Well, I don't think it's any longer a conspiracy. That's the fact. That's what is happening right now. They try, and they have to undermine our country. They have to destroy it the way we are, so they can control the rest of the world.
I'm Jonathan Gilliam. This is The Experts. The truth has arrived. Peace, and we're out of here.